Most people think fat loss is about starving yourself, cutting carbs, or running endlessly on a treadmill. But the truth is, your body doesn't burn fat based on willpower. It burns fat based on hormones. And the most powerful hormone in that process is insulin. If you don't understand insulin, you'll keep fighting your body instead of working with it. Today, I'm going to show you how to reset your body's insulin response, strip away fat faster than ever, and finally unlock the lean, energetic version of yourself that's been waiting underneath. When most people hear the word insulin, they think about diabetes, needles, and blood sugar checks. But insulin is so much more than that. It is one of the most powerful hormones in the human body, and it has everything to do with whether your body burns fat or stores it. Insulin is like a gatekeeper, a traffic cop, a switch that tells your body what to do with the energy you consume. When you eat, especially foods rich in carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises. In response, insulin comes rushing in, ready to escort that sugar out of your blood and into your cells. Now, here's the crucial part. Insulin doesn't just carry glucose into cells for energy. It also signals your body to store excess energy as fat. That means if insulin is elevated most of the time, your body is locked in storage mode and fat burning is practically shut off. Think of it like this. Imagine your body has two modes, storage mode and burning mode. You can't be in both at the same time. When insulin is up, your body says, let's store. When insulin is down, your body finally says, okay, let's burn. Most people who struggle with weight aren't failing because they're lazy or because they lack willpower. They're failing because their bodies are constantly trapped in storage mode, driven by elevated insulin levels. It's not about a lack of discipline. It's about biology. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Insulin itself is not the enemy. In fact, without it, we wouldn't survive. It's essential for life. The problem comes when insulin is chronically elevated day after day, meal after meal, thanks to the modern diet loaded with refined carbs, processed sugars, and constant snacking. Decades ago, people ate fewer times a day, and their meals contained more whole, unprocessed foods. Today, we graze all day long on snacks, sugary drinks, refined breads, and packaged foods. Every bite triggers a spike in blood sugar, and every spike demands an insulin response. Over time, this constant stimulation wears down the system, creating what's called insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is like your body turning up the volume on storage mode while making it nearly impossible to switch back to burning mode. Here's a way to picture it. Insulin is like a key that unlocks the door to your cells so glucose can enter. But when insulin is knocking on the door all the time, day and night, the cells start ignoring it. They become resistant. So the body responds by producing even more insulin, shouting louder, banging harder, trying desperately to get that sugar inside. And the cycle continues: more insulin, more fat storage, less fat burning. This is why people feel stuck. They think, no matter what I do, my body just won't let go of the fat. And they're right, because the hormonal switch has been flipped in the wrong direction. The beauty of understanding insulin is that you gain the power to change the entire equation. Once you realize fat loss isn't just about calories, but about hormones, you can stop fighting yourself and start working with your body. When you lower insulin, even modestly, your body naturally shifts gears. Suddenly, it begins tapping into stored fat for fuel. Hunger levels become more stable, cravings decrease, energy improves, and fat loss accelerates without the constant battle of restriction. What most people miss is that you don't need extreme diets or punishing exercise to change your insulin response. It starts with awareness, being mindful of the foods and habits that constantly trigger insulin spikes. And when you take simple steps to bring insulin down, you're not forcing your body to lose weight, you're allowing it. You're unlocking the natural mechanism that was designed to keep you lean, energized, and healthy. Understanding insulin is the key that unlocks everything else we'll be talking about. Because if insulin is high, nothing else matters. You won't burn fat efficiently. But once you learn how to bring it under control, you'll finally experience what it feels like when your body starts working with you, not against you. And that's when real transformation begins. One of the biggest traps keeping people stuck in the cycle of stubborn fat gain is something that most never even think about: glucose spikes. Every time you eat, your blood sugar rises. That's normal and that's healthy, but what matters is how high it rises and how quickly it drops afterward. In today's world, with the kinds of foods we're constantly surrounded by, refined carbs, sugary snacks, energy drinks, fast food, processed breads, those rises aren't gentle. They're steep, they're sharp, and they send your body on a wild roller coaster ride that leaves you tired, craving more, and unable to tap into fat for fuel. When glucose spikes suddenly, your body has to respond with a surge of insulin to bring it back down. And here's the problem: insulin doesn't just lower blood sugar, it locks your body into fat storage mode, and once it's there, fat burning is effectively turned off. Now, if this only happened once in a while, it wouldn't be such a big deal. The body is resilient and knows how to balance itself out. But the reality is, for most people, this happens multiple times every single day. Breakfast might be a bowl of cereal or a couple of pieces of toast with jam. Mid-morning, it's a sugary coffee drink or a muffin. Lunch is often a sandwich with white bread or a slice of pizza. By the afternoon, when energy crashes, people reach for chips, candy bars, or soda. Dinner brings more refined carbs, and then late night snacking seals the deal. What you've got is an endless stream of glucose spikes, each one demanding another wave of insulin. Think about the way that feels. You start the morning feeling good, then by late morning, you're crashing. You can't focus, your energy dips. You start craving something sweet or starchy just to pick yourself back up. You get the snack, you feel better for an hour, then the crash comes again. That cycle repeats all day long. The average person thinks they just need more discipline or more coffee. But the truth is, it's not a character flaw, it's chemistry. It's what happens when your body rides the glucose roller coaster. The highs feel good for a moment, but the lows drag you down, and the only way out of the low is another hit of sugar or carbs. Over time, this rhythm keeps insulin elevated, keeps fat locked away, and leaves you trapped in cravings that feel impossible to escape. Now, here's the kicker. These spikes don't just affect your waistline, they affect your brain. When your blood sugar swings wildly, your mood follows. Anxiety, irritability, and brain fog often come hand in hand with glucose crashes. That's why people say things like, hangry. It's not a joke, it's real. Your brain depends on steady fuel, and when it doesn't get it, you feel it emotionally and mentally just as much as you feel it physically. And then, of course, when the brain wants fast energy, craves quick digesting carbs, the very thing that makes the cycle worse. The good news is, once you see how this pattern works, you can break it. You don't have to live on that roller coaster. By focusing on foods and habits that keep your glucose rise steady and gradual, you reduce the spikes and smooth out the ride. That means instead of the sharp highs and deep crashes, you get a more stable curve. Your body stays satisfied longer, your energy lasts, and insulin doesn't surge as dramatically. The result is fewer cravings, more mental clarity, and most importantly, a body that's finally able to shift back into fat burning mode. This is why people are amazed when they start making just small changes, eating more protein with breakfast, adding fiber to meals, or even something as simple as taking a short walk after eating. Those little adjustments flatten the spike, which flattens the crash, which lowers insulin, which opens the door to fat loss. It's not about depriving yourself. It's about understanding how your body responds to food and learning how to make it work for you instead of against you. Once you master this, everything else becomes easier. You're no longer fighting cravings all day long. You're no longer exhausted by the afternoon. You're no longer wondering why, despite eating less, the scale won't budge. Instead, you're stable, you're energized, and you're finally tapping into the fat that's been locked away. And that's when you realize fat loss isn't about punishment, it's about working with your biology. Here's where things really start to get exciting, because once you understand how insulin works and how glucose spikes keep you trapped in storage mode, the natural question is, how do you flip the switch? How do you turn your body from a fat storing machine into a fat burning machine? The answer lies in mastering the insulin fat switch. Your body is designed to burn fat. It's just been blocked from doing so by constantly elevated insulin. But the moment you learn how to bring insulin levels down, even just a little, everything changes. Think about it this way. Your body is like a hybrid car. It can run on two different fuels. One is glucose, which is quick, easy, but limited. The other is fat, which is abundant, stable, and meant to keep you going for the long haul. When insulin is high, your body only wants to run on glucose. It ignores the fat stores completely. But when insulin drops, the system shifts gears. Suddenly, fat becomes available as fuel, and you finally start burning what you've been carrying around. That's the power of flipping the switch. Now, what actually brings insulin down? It's not some exotic supplement or a magic fat burning pill. It's a series of simple, natural choices that send a signal to your body. We don't need to store right now, we're ready to burn. The first part of that is meal composition. When you eat foods high in refined carb and sugar, insulin spikes. But when you eat meals centered on protein, fiber, and healthy fats, the response is calmer and more controlled. That means your body isn't being pushed into storage mode as aggressively, and it can more easily transition into burning. It doesn't mean you have to cut out carbs entirely, but it does mean you want to be smart about how and when you eat them. Timing also plays a huge role. For most people, the problem isn't just what they're eating, it's how often. Constant snacking keeps insulin elevated around the clock. Your body never gets a break, never gets the signal that it's okay to start burning fat. By simply spacing meals out, by giving your body windows of time where insulin isn't being triggered, you allow fat burning to switch on naturally. This is why approaches like intermittent fasting or even just cutting out mindless snacking are so powerful. They don't starve the body, they free it. They create the environment where fat can finally be used as fuel. Here's something else to keep in mind. This switch doesn't take weeks or months to start working. Your body is incredibly responsive. Lower insulin even for a few hours, and it will begin tapping into stored fat. You'll notice changes in how your energy feels, how your hunger feels, and how your focus sharpens. Over time, this shift becomes your new normal, and you'll wonder why you ever thought fat loss had to be about restriction and suffering. Another point that's often overlooked is how powerful small daily habits are in influencing this switch. For example, something as simple as a brisk walk after a meal can dramatically lower the insulin response, which means you're not just burning off a few calories, you're literally changing your body's hormonal state. Lifting weights, building muscle, and even getting quality sleep all improve insulin sensitivity, which makes it easier for your body to transition into burning mode instead of storing mode. These aren't extreme lifestyle overhauls, they're basic, sustainable shifts that compound over time into huge results. And here's the real breakthrough. Once you train your body to flip into fat, burning mode consistently, it starts to prefer it. Fat becomes the primary fuel. That means more stable energy, fewer crashes, less dependence on constant snacking, and a body that naturally leans down without endless struggle. You stop fighting biology and start working with it. That's why people who understand the insulin fat switch can eat satisfying meals, feel full, enjoy steady energy all day, and still lose weight. It's not magic. It's physiology working exactly the way it was designed to. When you realize this, fat loss is no longer about starving yourself or punishing your body. It's about creating the conditions where your body does what it's meant to do. Lower insulin unlocks stored fat and let the switch flip. That's when the transformation begins. One of the most overlooked but incredibly powerful ways to take control of insulin and unlock fat burning is not just what you eat, but the order and timing in which you eat it. Most people don't realize that the sequence of foods on their plate and the spacing of their meals can literally change the hormonal response of their body. You could eat the same number of calories, the same exact foods, but if you eat them in a different order or at a different time, the way your body handles insulin could be completely different. And that's the difference between stuck in storage mode and finally shifting into fat burning mode. Here's an example. Let's say you're having a meal that includes some protein, some vegetables, and some starch like rice or bread. If you dive straight into the bread or the rice first, you get a sharp glucose spike, insulin surges, and your body goes into storage mode almost immediately. But if you start with the protein and the vegetables, especially fiber-rich vegetables, something fascinating happens. That fiber and protein slow down the digestion and absorption of the carbs that follow. The result is a much flatter glucose curve and a smaller insulin response. Same meal, same calories, but a completely different outcome inside your body. That's the power of food order. Another powerful lever is meal timing. The modern pattern of eating, grazing from the moment we wake up until just before bed, keeps insulin elevated around the clock. Every little snack, every sip of a sugary drink, every handful of chips sends another signal to keep storing. Your body never gets a break, never gets a chance to access fat stores. By simply shifting the timing, eating in clear meals with breaks in between, you give your insulin time to come down. Even a 4 or 5 hour gap between meals can make a dramatic difference in how your body burns fuel. For some people, this naturally evolves into forms of intermittent fasting, but it doesn't have to be complicated. The key is giving your body windows of time when insulin isn't constantly being triggered. There's also something important to understand about the late night eaten trap. When you eat close to bedtime, your body doesn't process food the same way. Insulin sensitivity is lower at night, meaning your body needs to produce more insulin to handle the same amount of food. That higher insulin response not only locks fat away, but also disrupts your sleep quality. Poor sleep then feeds right back into more cravings and worse insulin control the next day. It becomes a vicious cycle. Shifting your larger meals earlier in the day and keeping evenings lighter can work wonders for fat loss and energy. Even simple strategies can completely change the game. For example, adding vinegar or a green salad before a carb-heavy meal blunts the glucose spike. Going for a short 10-minute walk after eating uses up some of the glucose right away, meaning insulin doesn't have to rise as high. Pairing carbs with protein and healthy fats slows digestion, smoothing out the rise and fall. These aren't extreme diets. They're practical hacks that work with your biology. The beauty of these approaches is that they're flexible. You don't need to cut out entire food groups or obsessively count every gram of what you eat. You just need to be intentional about the order and timing. And once you start practicing this, you'll notice changes quickly. You won't crash as hard after meals. You'll stay full longer, and those late night cravings will start to fade. That's not willpower. It's chemistry working in your favor. When people realize that food order and timing are this powerful, it changes everything. It's liberating because it means you don't have to live in constant restriction. You can enjoy the foods you love, But by structuring them differently, you take control of how your body responds. And when your body is responding in a way that keeps insulin low and fat burning active, results come faster, they come easier, and they last. It's not just what you eat, it's when and how you eat it. And once you start mastering that, you'll finally see how small shifts in habit can open the door to big transformations. When people think about fat loss, their minds immediately jump to dieting and exercise. They obsess over what's on their plate or how many calories they burned on the treadmill. But here's the truth. Some of the most powerful tools for lowering insulin and boosting fat burning don't come from food alone. They come from the way you live your everyday life. Simple habits, the ones you might not even think of as fat loss strategies, can completely reshape how your body responds to insulin, how it burns fuel, and how quickly you see results. Let's start with movement. Notice I didn't say exercise, I said movement, because you don't need to spend hours in the gym to impact your insulin sensitivity. Something as basic as a 10-minute walk after a meal can lower your blood sugar and insulin significantly. Why? Because when your muscles are active, they act like sponges, soaking up glucose directly from the bloodstream without requiring as much insulin. That means every step you take after dinner isn't just burning a handful of calories, it's lowering the hormonal load that keeps you in storage mode. And the more consistently you move throughout the day, the more insulin sensitive your body becomes. Over time, this makes it easier for your system to flip into fat burning mode. Now, strength training takes it a step further. When you build muscle, you're not just changing how you look, you're changing how your body functions. Muscle tissue is metabolically active, meaning it's constantly demanding energy. The more muscle you have, the more places your body has to deposit glucose without needing high levels of insulin. Think of muscle like an extra storage tank that works with your body instead of against it. Every workout that challenges your muscles makes insulin's job easier, lowers resistance, and keeps the fat burning switch turned on longer. It's not about becoming a bodybuilder. It's about giving your body the best possible machinery to handle fuel efficiently. Sleep is another hidden powerhouse. Most people don't realize how profoundly sleep impacts insulin. One night of poor sleep, and your insulin sensitivity drops dramatically. That means your body has to pump out more insulin to manage the same meal you ate yesterday. And that extra insulin keeps you locked in storage mode. But it doesn't stop there. Lack of sleep also ramps up your hunger hormones, lowers your satiety hormones, and makes you crave more quick digesting carbs. That's why after a bad night of sleep, you want donuts instead of eggs, soda instead of water. And the more nights you repeat that pattern, the harder it becomes to keep insulin under control. By prioritizing good sleep, consistent bedtimes, a dark room, avoiding late night screens, you're not just resting, you're actively setting up your body to burn fat more effectively. Then there's stress. Most people underestimate how much stress can sabotage their goals. When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol, and cortisol signals the liver to release glucose into the bloodstream. That spike in glucose triggers insulin, and once again, you're pushed back into storage mode. Chronic stress doesn't just mess with your mood, it literally alters your metabolism. That's why people under constant stress often notice stubborn belly fat that won't budge, no matter how hard they diet. Stress management isn't a luxury, it's a fat loss tool. Practices like deep breathing, meditation, journaling, or even spending time outdoors lower cortisol, stabilize glucose, and make it easier for your body to stay in fat burning mode. Even hydration plays a role. When you're dehydrated, your body interprets it as stress, and that stress response raises cortisol, which again affects glucose and insulin. Drinking enough water seems almost too simple, but it's another way to keep the system balanced, cravings reduced, and fat loss on track. These habits don't sound glamorous, but they are game changers. They don't require extreme sacrifice, but they magnify everything else you do. Eat better, and these habits multiply the benefits. Space your meals, and these habits extend the fat burning window. It's all connected. And the best part, they create a lifestyle you can actually sustain. You don't have to rely on willpower alone when your daily rhythm is set up to keep insulin low and fat burning high. The reality is, fat loss is not just about food, it's about the way you live your life. When you sleep well, manage stress, move often, and build strength, you create an environment where fat burning is the natural state of your body. And when your body is working with you instead of against you, the results don't just show up faster, they last. When it comes to making real, lasting changes in your health and body, the most important thing isn't finding the perfect diet plan or the latest workout trend. The most important thing is building a system you can live with day after day, a rhythm that doesn't feel like punishment but feels like life. Because let's be honest, if you can't stick to it, it doesn't matter how effective it looks on paper. The real secret is creating a blueprint for fat loss that works for you, not against you, something that feels natural, sustainable, and aligned with the way you want to live. Think back to everything we've covered so far. Insulin, glucose spikes, flipping the fat switch, meal timing, lifestyle habits, these aren't separate topics floating around on their own. They're interconnected pieces of the same puzzle. And when you put them together, they create a system that transforms not only how your body burns fat, but also how you feel every single day. The goal isn't to follow rigid rules forever. The goal is to integrate these principles into your daily routine so seamlessly that they stop feeling like effort and start feeling like who you are. For some people, that might mean starting small, like making protein the centerpiece of every meal or taking a 10-minute walk after dinner. For others, it could mean experimenting with spacing out meals or cutting back on late night snacks. The point isn't to overhaul your life overnight, but to layer in these changes one at a time until they become second nature. That's when the blueprint starts to take shape, when you no longer feel like you're dieting or forcing yourself into something unnatural, but instead you're just living in a way that supports fat loss automatically. And here's the beauty of it. The more you align with this blueprint, the less you'll have to rely on willpower. Willpower is unreliable. It comes and goes. But systems and habits, those carry you through even on the tough days. If your environment is set up in a way that supports your goals, you don't have to fight yourself at every turn. Stock your kitchen with whole foods, plan meals that balance protein, fiber, and healthy fats, build a daily routine that includes movement and good sleep. And suddenly fat loss isn't a struggle. It's the byproduct of your lifestyle. Another key part of this blueprint is flexibility. Too many people fail because they try to follow something rigid that doesn't bend when life happens. And life will always happen. Travel, celebrations, work stress, family obligations. Those moments are inevitable. But when you have a blueprint that's built on principles rather than perfection, you don't fall apart when things go off track. You know how to get back on course without guilt, without shame, without feeling like you've ruined everything. That's what makes this sustainable. It's not about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it consistently enough that your body has no choice but to change. And what you'll find is that the longer you live this way, the better it feels. Your energy stabilizes, your cravings diminish, your sleep improves, and your confidence grows. Those small victories add up, and before you know it, the fat loss isn't the only thing you've gained. You've built resilience, discipline, and self-trust. You've proven to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. And that's the kind of momentum that carries into every other area of your life. This blueprint isn't about restriction, it's about freedom. Freedom from the endless cycle of dieting. Freedom from the roller coaster of energy highs and lows. Freedom from the frustration of working hard without seeing results. When you live in a way that keeps insulin balanced, glucose steady, and fat burning active, you give your body exactly what it needs to thrive. And the result is not just a leaner body, but a healthier, stronger, more energized version of yourself. The path forward isn't about chasing shortcuts. It's about building a lifestyle that naturally strips fat and sustains health. And once you commit to living by that blueprint, everything else falls into place.